Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is March 2, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Thank you, Rob. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Jaydon Bean. What a name and what a guy. Jay, do you want me to call
Hey,
you Jay or Jaydon?
whatever you want, man.
But what do you prefer?
Probably just Jaydon.
Okay, Jaydon. And where are you calling in from?
I'm in Burbank, California.
How cool is that? Now, the first question is let's just dive into it. What's the best thing for a human being?
For a human being,
Yeah,
hmm, what's the best thing? Probably relationship.
that is a great word. And what's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Hmm, hmm. I guess experiential.
That's heavy. You know some good words here. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
That's how our brains are wired, processing.
Yeah, but we're wired to do it. But is there a reason why we collect information? Like, what's the
Um, I would say that that's all there is information. So we're essentially just storage devices for various forms of information, just like all the other things in the universe. Everything kind of just holds information and projects information, and it transfers information. We're just another form of information transferring, I guess.
that's some good verbs, dude. Now, do thoughts create emotions?
Mm, let me think about it.
We're on a roll
That's a,
here.
that's a, that's a tough one, because then it's like our emotions usually are rooted in sensation, like in the body, and those can trigger thought, but thought can also trigger sensations in the body and emotions in the body. So I would say it's like a pendulum swinging back and forth.
That is a great word because some of these initial questions, some of my questions are either or what is more. So it's your hunch, and I like that because a lot of people just go both, but you put it in a metaphor, a pendulum swinging. So sometimes it's more this direction, sometimes it's more that direction.
Yeah, I think that's how everything in life goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
just
asked this guy, he played for Blue Cheer, V Vale. I says, do thoughts create emotions? He goes, emotions create emotions.
yeah.
Do you think,
Yeah.
Jaydon, do you think that humans, your observations, and I know it's both and it depends, but your observations of humans, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Mm, I think that the world is leading to more thinking beings. I
And
think
that's
that
a good
maybe
thing?
humans originally probably felt more because there wasn't language quite developed, right? So thought is based off language, and everyone's attached to thoughts through that language. Like, I don't know if there's technically thought other than language running
Dude,
through your mind.
do you have ESP? The next question is, can humans think without language? So first of all, do you think you have ESP?
I don't know.
Okay, so that was amazing. You anticipated the question. Now the question, do can humans think without language?
Yeah. Um, I think that in my experience, when there's no language, there's no thought. Um, I would say that if there's no thought, because thought involves time, right? So there's an experience, and then thought enters in as a reflection of the experience of the mind trying to process. and narrate it into a a form of words that you can remember and associate with. But the experience itself, you can have reactive thought based off programming, like in the form of like boxing or something, where you're not thinking about it beforehand, and you're not thinking about it after because the moment's moved on. It's like just strictly reactive programming that happens in the mind, and there's not really like a words that come in. It's like, okay, I'm going to parry the jab and then slip and then throw a right. It's just like things that happen, and you're there thinking about it, but you're not narrating it, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. But let's go to boxing for a second. You brought up boxing as a metaphor, or it's something you've actually pursued in your life?
Both.
Wow.
Not
Okay.
like
Well,
pursued seriously, but I did get heavily into it for probably like 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Who's your 3 favorite boxers of all time? Did you follow boxers or like them, or you just picked up boxing because of?
I mean, yes and no. I've just been like into fighting all my life. The ginger thing, you gotta kind of defend yourself a lot.
The
People
the
kind
ginger the ginger thing? What was that?
Yeah, the
The
ginger thing. People
what's
pick
that
on
mean?
gingers a lot.
What's a ginger?
It's a redhead.
The redhead gets picked on. So yeah, are you Irish?
Am I what?
Irish.
Um,
Irish.
Technically, we're like Nordic. Our bloodline is like way up there, Norway, kind of like,
Norway. Okay.
and then went down to Scotland. So like my surname comes from Scotland.
I got you.
It's Bean or McBean.
Now I want to get in boxing a little more, but just off the top of your head, were there 3 boxers who like you looked up to, you idolized, or you watched, or any boxers you liked?
I mean, when I was really into boxing was like maybe 10 years ago is when I started. So all the newer fighters I followed, um, like Canelo, Mayweather, like all those, Triple G. Um, it, I like the old boxers too, though. So watching Mike Tyson fight was like memories from when I was a little kid. And me and my brother
Yeah.
would watch Mike Tyson just destroy people. So I mean, as far as one of the biggest influences in boxing, I think everyone's going to say Tyson because he changed the game. But I mean,
Yeah.
obviously Muhammad Ali, and you can watch all the old
Yeah.
legends fight, and the fighting style just changes a lot over the years.
Good. I'm glad we touched on that. That was good. But do you think, back to thinking, do you think thinking is more innate or more invented?
Hmm. Innate or invented?
More. I know it's both, but probably. But do you think humans have thinking innately, or is it something we invented?
I think it goes back to language. I think that there's observation of things, of everything in the universe observes its surroundings and calculates and then makes moves based on it, even down to like a virus. Somehow it observes all these cells and things around it and can pick which things to infect, and then insert its code in a specific way. It's got all the information programmed in it to do that. But I think that thought, as we know it, definitely developed. I wouldn't say it was invented, because I don't know if the earliest humans that invented language were like, I don't know if it was out of necessity because they had a rock, and then they're like, okay, I need to figure out how to make you understand that I'm observing this thing that's happening, or like fire, for instance. It just happens, or however it happened in the beginning.
Yeah.
They observed it, and then they took in the information and something in the brain happens that allows them to interact with another human being in such a way that they understand what's happening in their observation. And then
Yeah,
from
that
there,
was, yeah. Because
develop.
I ask people, what's the first human invention? And sometimes they say fire. And I goes, well, we didn't invent fire. We invented how you manage it or how you harness it or how you start it. But fire is on Earth, whether humans are there or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Earth definitely makes fire happen.
Yeah.
Volcano starts fires, you know.
Yeah. So fill in the blank, Jaydon. I don't know what I think until I
I don't know what I think until I do it.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just what came to my head. So
No, that's good. That's good. Chomsky says a language is not just words. It's culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down?
what do you do? Um, I think at that point there would just have to be a sense of community. If language broke down and people weren't able, you're talking about like if people weren't able to communicate, or if
Well, the
like
various,
if anything.
various, yeah. If you're in a group and language isn't working, that's you're saying, yeah, it's some strategy happens. Like if you're talking to your best friend and language isn't working, what do you do? Or if you're dealing with politics on a global scale and communication, a language isn't working, what's your strategy?
Hmm. Space, I guess.
What's the word?
Allow space.
Oh, allow space. That's good.
Because I think that when language isn't working, it's because maybe your language that's being spoken is not being cohesive with the thoughts that are going on in that person's head, and
Yeah.
you are conflicting information. And so, if it's not working, it's because there's just a constant conflicting of information. There's no time for the person to process the information that's coming in accordance with the information that they already have. So
Yeah.
sometimes that space, allows that information to kind of work together. And it's like if you're in an argument, you can keep either arguing your point until you both just can't talk anymore, and then space is going to come in forcefully, or you just allow it to happen.
No, I like space. It's sort of like silence or negative, a void. These are two questions from Alan Turing, 1950. Is thinking a function of the soul?
A function of the soul. That's an interesting one, because first you have to think and believe that there's a soul.
Yeah.
So if you're on that tip, that there's something other than the processes of the brain creating these firings of electrons and neurons and things that are relative to thought, then you'd have to figure out where the soul is sitting on that tip. I don't know that I would agree with it, but I don't know that I would not agree with it, because I don't know what happens after we die. So I don't know if there's a soul or not.
It's a good lead into a question I usually ask later. Can you forget to die?
Can you forget to die?
Yeah.
Can you forget to die? Or can you forget that you're going to die?
That's what you're doing is you're you're answering a question with a question. You win. That's what this series is all about, inventing new questions. But no, I like to psychoanalyze the questions themselves because the wording is, can you forget to die? And then you imply that, can you forget that you're going to die? So you have a certainty to the way you rephrased it. But with my wording, it's not certain because we don't know if we ever die because we don't know, we can't come back from death and say I died.
Yeah, well, because yeah, death is death is the observation of the people around you. If you died in your sleep, would you know you're dead? Only the people that are observing you know you're dead. You know,
Perfect example.
back to the wording thing. That's the whole philosopher's trial is figuring out what we're saying exactly.
Yeah. Well,
So
the second Turing question is, can machines think?
can machines think? Um, well, I think machines are based off of thought. Their programming is based off of thought, observation, information, and then a programmed, you know, algorithm to figure out what the information is going to result in whatever calculation you want. But in terms of machine learning, I mean, it's all programmed by thought, but I don't know if there's not, it's all structured within in a certain zone, right? So you got certain information that you give it that it can learn with. Um, I think if you gave it enough information, maybe eventually it would be able to think, but it would be, it would require the same type of development that a human mind would from the time of being a baby, when you're just like taking in all this raw data and you don't even know what anything is. It's pretty much like you're tripping on acid all the time. And, do you hear these sounds around you of your parents talking and learning your relationship to the observations, um, and how that information correlates? I mean, machines eventually would be able to do that, but they don't get to take in raw data like a human mind does. They, like I said, they take in pre-programmed information that we give them.
Yeah, that was good. Jaydon, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I think they're both bullshit.
Ah, that is good. They're both bullshit. I've never had that answer. That is great. Okay, Jaydon, does the brain, mind, the human, does it more detect consciousness or create consciousness? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we creating it?
Yeah, yeah. So you're like talking about whether it's the panpsychism view of like consciousness is the base of everything and everything comes out of that, or the illusionist, you know, uh, I guess you could call it, what's the word? Um, this consciousness, uh, emergent. That's the word.
Emergent, yes,
Um,
emergence.
that's the
Word.
word that Sean Carroll uses. I've listened to a lot of those debates between all the quote unquote consciousness experts about, whether the brain created consciousness as just another process to help, you know, navigate the information that's given in the world, or is consciousness the base of everything, and then everything comes from that? I don't know what side I'm on yet, because I feel like if you view consciousness as the base of everything, there there then leaves a lot of room for many things that are unexplainable and unintegrated. Like, you can't get data on it. You can't get you're taking people's words for their experience. You can't actually get the raw data on it. Like, you could be saying you're conscious, and I just have to believe you because I don't get to experience what you're experiencing to say you really are seeing these things this way and feeling these things this way. You're just hearing, I'm just hearing the words that you're saying and accepting them, you know? So, and science is pretty convincing with the information they have, and how the brain works and how consciousness works. But there's still a lot of unexplained. So I don't know if it's going to be something that we can say
one way or the other. Yeah. Is perception reality?
Is perception reality? I think it's part of reality. Because just because you don't perceive my reality the exact way, like, I mean, you got perception, right? From the beginning, there's perception. And then time comes in the form of thought. And from that spirals into time moving forward and past. Those things might not be quote unquote real, because then we've got to define the word real. What's real? Like, a table you say is real, but the way we see it is not the way that it really is. It's a bunch of little fine particles moving very fast, and then our brain notices these patterns and forms this table image for us, this word for us, and it's still real in our experience and our perceiving of it, but it's not really what it is in the granular form. So I think everything's real, and perception is just the beginning of it. I mean, you can't, if you don't perceive, then there's nothing, essentially.
Good.
Even if there is nothing, you're still perceiving nothing, then there's something.
Yeah, that's the great Frank Zappa line. Nothing is what I want.
Yeah.
Hey, I want nothing. Okay, what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of light or speed of thought? What's faster?
Yep.
Probably the speed of light, because it took me about 2 seconds to come up with that. Light would have done it, like, the speed of light would have been like that. No, I think
Okay.
I think that thought still is trapped in time, and it unfolds according to time. It takes time to think thoughts. It takes time it might not take the same amount of time for the words to happen in your head as it does to say them. Like, the time in the mind might be super fast, but I don't know that it's faster than the speed of light. But who knows?
Yeah, no, that was good. Audre Lorde, the poet, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tool." Yvonne Rainer, the poet, filmmaker, dancer, said, "You can if you expose the tool." What new tool do you suggest?
Can you repeat that? Your mic's getting a little scratchy.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it's my mic. I think it might be Rob might want to turn off, because it could be his, because when you first started, there was no noise.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's getting scratchy for some reason.
I was wondering if you heard the scratchy noise too. Anyways, I could turn down. Can you hear me now?
It's still scratching.
Yeah. We'll just live with it. I don't know. I don't know how to fix these technical things. It'll make the listener want to listen more closely, but
Yeah.
I think it could be Rob. Rob left his on. It could be that, or it could be something else.
Yeah.
But unless you have some tech advice, what do they call that? Troubleshooting.
No, this is my first time with this program, so I don't even
really
know.
Because I usually just go, I'll live with it, but I know it's been irritating. We've had 25 minutes of clicking noise. Okay, I'm going to say it one more time. You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tool. Then someone else said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
What tool do I suggest to
Yeah.
disband the master's house?
Yeah. Well, the thing is one thing to remember. If I start a question with a cute quote, you don't have to apply the quote. The basic question is, what tool do you suggest? Then I add the word new tool, and then you could apply it to the dismantling the master's house. So again, it's like you put all the questions into the context you want.
Yeah. My question is, why do we want to dismantle the master's house?
That is good. You're answering a question with a question. You win again. Yeah. No, we could leave it at that. What new toy do you suggest?
Say that one more time.
What new toy, TOY, do you suggest or you gravitate towards?
What new toys
Yeah.
in terms of music or
Any context you want. Yeah.
um, what new toys? I've been enjoying like my recording plugins and those type of toys, like all my recording gear.
Right.
My life is pretty focused around music, so any new toys are usually dedicated to that. Other than that, I do have a nice stand-up punching bag that I got during COVID. That's been pretty nice.
That is nice.
It's like
What do
it's like one of those big, it
right.
looks like a pillar. So
That's
I
nice.
beat the shit out of that sometimes.
That is good. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Well, the past couple weeks it's been my wife because she's in Mexico on vacation with her family. But other than that, I probably worry about getting good sleep.
That's an answer I get a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty. I think that's if you're going to bed worrying about something, it's usually something that's going to happen the next day, and then it triggers into I'm not going to get any sleep because I'm worrying about this thing tomorrow, and now I'm worried about not getting good sleep, and I'm going to be tired for this thing tomorrow. It's like you got
Totally.
or the old I have to wake up way earlier than I ever wake up and go to the airport thing or whatever, and you're worried about sleeping through your alarm, so you don't sleep at all. So
Yeah. So Marshall McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists, musicians, filmmakers, whoever, let's just call them artists in general, are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we can learn to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. So this main question that McLuhan probed, I asked you, Jaydon, why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though artists are broadcasting them to us?
why do we ignore? I don't think everyone ignores it, but I think that there's always going to be the other side of the picture looking at you and opposition in all things. That whole saying is like
Yeah,
it's pretty true around the board. And that's how the pendulum swings back and forth. Is because there's always opposition pulling it in the other direction. So I don't think that the psychic thing would exist if we didn't have the opposition of it.
that's heavy. Yeah, so you're saying that duality or that duality factor, like the yin and yang. Like some people ignore it and some people process it.
Yeah, I think that there's the sides, but I don't think you have to be on one side. I think, like I said,
Yeah,
it's really non-dual, but you end up on one side or the other for moments of time, and that's the only way that you know that there is some sort of duality. Otherwise, it would just be non-dual. I mean, I don't think it's non-dual or dual. I think it's just always ebb and flowing.
That's reminds me of Gurdjieff says that laughter is the reconciliation of yes and no.
It's the reconciliation of yes and then no.
And no.
Oh
And
yeah,
no. Yes and no. Yeah. So that's sort of like you
yeah.
swing back and forth.
I can see that.
Do artists have a moral obligation?
To what?
I've been getting that question. No, again, you put it in the context you want. Like
Yeah,
you can,
I mean,
yeah, that's good. You answered the question with the question again. I appreciate that. But
yeah. Then we get, but see, we were talking about moral obligations. Then we got to talk about morality. Which is a deeper subject, and built off belief systems of past traditions and various religions and and such. I think that it's just good. I think musicians have the opportunity to do good. I don't
yeah,
think there's any obligation to do anything. But if there is some sort of free will and choice, and you have the opportunity to do good for the world, it'd be great to do that.
well, Auden the poet said the mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us.
Yeah. Activates or pacifies.
Like, do you veg out and like Bertolt Brecht said, I want art that activates people. I don't want to put them in a trance. Well, if you go into a trance because you're at a Dead show or at some, jazz concert and you go into a trance, that could lead to something activating you. But,
Well,
we don't know.
isn't the trance happening activation? I mean, activation, the word itself could be just any change in state of mind. It doesn't have to be, something specific. It just is like, if it triggers your mind to go somewhere else, it's activated it.
It's activating, but I'm saying, like, how they say couch potato, like watching TV, you're just vegging out. Well, like I asked my niece once, why are you watching this? It was the worst show in the world. And she goes, because nothing else is on. And it sounds stupid, but she had deemed this hour in her life to just veg out and relax on the couch and just stare. It doesn't matter what's on the TV. So that's pacifying. That could be like, it could be that she's letting art or TV or entertainment pacify her, so it leads her to relaxing. But we don't know if art does that because we think art, we're musicians and artists, we think art is good and it, like you said, it's good. But it could just be a big distraction.
Well, it definitely is a distraction. Everything is a distraction.
That's a good statement. Are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
Am I more afraid of old ideas? I think I'm more fed up with old ideas and more accepting of new ideas.
There you go. Change those verbs, Jaydon. That was good. Can
Yeah.
you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Um, the funny thing about memories is the brain has that good old negativity bias. So all your earliest memories, most of the time, are negative ones. So I remember memories from my childhood. They were all, I mean, I remember positive ones as well, but most of the negative ones are the ones that stick out more, when you're embarrassed or, something. I remember being like 5, maybe. Yeah, no, 5. That's in kindergarten age, it's like 5 or 6, right? Yeah. And I was dropped off at kindergarten for my schedule, but I had the afternoon schedule, and I got dropped off in the morning, and my class wasn't there, and I didn't see anyone that I knew, and so I freaked out and tried to walk home. It's like a 2-mile walk, and got picked up by my neighbors who took me home. And I get home, and my mom was like, "What are you doing here? How did you get here? Like, who brought you here?" And I just like, got so scared that I did something bad or something, So it was a negative one, but at the same time, it's one of my earliest ones.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
I think that it's both. I think that traumatic memories are a curse if you don't know how to use them. I think that good memories are a blessing because they can help take you out of times when your mind is traveling to other memories that are in the past that are not good.
Yeah. Jaydon, tell me, within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you like a role model, and what specifically was that impact? Just briefly.
Hmm. In my family, probably I have to go with someone who's dead because that'll give them some more life. It'd be my grandpa, my dad's dad, and he's just
What did you get from him?
I learned a lot from my grandpa. How to think, how to observe, how to connect with nature, how to treat people, how to respect women, how to respect your parents, how to love your family and support your family. Like he was a single grandpa, and my family all grew up doing everything on the planet: sports, music, dancing, you name it. And he was damn near at every event. He made it a point to support family. So it's immediate family. I would say my grandpa. Um, Outside of my family, there's been a lot. I've had a lot of teachers that have been really influential. High school teacher, Dr. Shannon Roberts, and then my buddy Bill Nichols, my drum teacher Jay Lawrence. Jay Lawrence is like a phenomenal teacher, and obviously on the playing side, he's the one that got my mind where it's at and how to hear music from a drummer's perspective. And then my buddy Bill Nichols was like my drum godfather, I'd say. He is a friend of my teacher in high school that took me under his wing, and he lived down the street from me and would always let me come over and try playing on all his drum sets. He's got like 9 phenomenal drum sets. He's got vintage 50s Ludwigs and all these awesome drums, Gretsch drums and everything, and a whole recording setup. So he would let me come over and I'd record to, all the old trio records that didn't have drummers, just various artists, and I'd record to them, and he would track me and we look at it all in the session, and he gave me a bunch of gear when I first moved out and when I was young. He hooked me up with stuff. So
that was good. You covered that well, and we're going to get back into music, but a couple other questions about your background. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Did my parents what?
Raise you a particular religion?
Oh yeah, I was raised Mormon.
And did you ever check out
Check out?
of being Mormon?
Oh yeah, years ago.
About what age?
I would say officially probably when I moved out to LA when I was 20.
Age 20.
Yeah, all through my teenage years, I was experimenting outside of the beliefs of that religion. You know, when you grow up in a real strict uh, faith, let's say, you when you're told not to do a lot of things, essentially it makes you want to do them. So I do all the
Yeah.
things that I was told not to do.
Do you pray?
No, not anymore.
If God exists, what do you want God to say to you after you die?
What do I want him to say to me? I would want him to tell me why everything happened to me.
That is great. You know how many people go, good job, welcome. Why?
Yeah, because if there is such thing as meaning, I want to know it.
Yeah. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think evil is a viewpoint of morality and has a lot of past conditioning and tradition behind it. I think that there are things that I think pretty much anyone would say are evil, and that's usually the very dark things, murder, rape, all that stuff. Um, but I think people are assholes. I don't know if there's people that are. I think that even people that we consider as evil are repeating trauma a lot of times. And I don't know if they got a whole lot of choice in the trauma that they were given. Um, you watch like those catching killers or like serial killer documentaries, and you hear their stories, and it's like they grew up in some really tough stuff, you know, and that's the information that their brain was given, so that's what they know. So I guess if you say they're inherently evil, then the real evil people are the people that raised them and gave them the information. But again, they were probably also doing the same shit that happened to them. So then you got to trace it back to where was the beginning of the evil people. So I don't know. I think there are people that get stuck in evil things because of their trauma, and then that's all their identity. So to pre-program or to reprogram their structure is probably very difficult. So you might be
That's the answer. That's the answer I get the most, is connecting it with trauma. That we're all capable of evil, but
yeah.
some people have trauma. But the really hidden question is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'm going to set it up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question, Jaydon, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Mm. I think not acknowledging it is a version, which acknowledges it anyways. I don't think I don't think there's a way to not acknowledge it, even if you're trying not to acknowledge it. So I would say that one doesn't really fly. I'd say if I was to advise somebody on their enemy, I would say, what in yourself do you not like that you see in your enemy? And then go from there. Work
Well,
on
that's
that in yourself, and then maybe your enemy won't be your enemy because you just defeated the enemy.
But that's pretty wise, Where did you get that from? Your parents, the way they raised you, on your own? How did you get that sensibility?
I just had those thoughts come into my head right now. I don't know where they came from. No, I've read plenty of books. There's information out there in my ether of my brain. I probably just regurgitated some bullshit that I've heard before.
But it's
It
back
sounds
to
like
the
something
nature.
like Mr. Miyagi would say, like, "Oh, you must defeat the enemy within," or something. You know,
You mean that's from a movie?
it probably is. I don't know. Maybe it's the
No,
Ninja Turtles. Maybe it's the
who's
Federation
Miss
Ninja Turtles.
the everything's turtles everywhere down, but who did you quote? Mr. Who?
Say that again.
I thought you quoted Mr. Miragi or you quoted
Oh,
something.
Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid.
Oh, Karate Kid. That's what I thought it was. Chris. Yeah, it sounds like Karate Kid. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
this skateboard philosopher on the Venice boardwalk really nailed it when I asked him. He said the word name is enemy.
Yeah.
Enemy. So as soon as you name your enemy, you've created it. So it sort of goes back to you. You can't, if you don't, like I get that response. If you don't acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. If you do acknowledge them, you empower them.
Yeah. Either way,
Yeah.
you're acknowledging them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
James,
Once you step
yeah.
in the position of having an enemy, you're in that position already.
Yeah.
So if there is an enemy, it's already been acknowledged.
Yeah. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Why do we have memories?
You're good at creating new questions. I like that.
Well, that's all it is. Like anytime we're recreating, we're just remembering and wanting to be in that memory. Even if it's not a memory that we personally had, we can still imagine it somehow. Like you go to see a play, you've seen, unless you've never seen anything before in your life, it might be a brand new experience. But I mean, it's hard to say because we grew up with technology and we weren't in the 1700s or 1600s or 1800s where people were actually recreating more recent experiences. Now we watch plays of, if you go watch Romeo and Juliet, that's a recreation of recreation of a recreation of something that was going on hundreds of years ago. So it's just all remembering.
No, I like that. It's you evoked a McLuhan term he calls rear view mirrorism. We go forward always looking in the rear view mirror of what happened, the mirror. The memory is like that. But what is the motive of the cave artist? What's your hunch?
Say that again.
What's the motive of the cave artist?
The modem of the cave. I'm sorry, it was
Motive, motive,
oh,
motive. What's the motive of cave art or cave music? You brought up, 16th century. Go way back to the cave artists. What was their motive?
Probably to put thought outside of the mind.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. So Jay, walk me through just briefly how you got to the tipping point where you said, I want to be a drummer. I want to pursue that as my life. But more so, if I was at a party before you start, if I was at a party and we just met and we didn't know each other, I says, what do you do, Jay? What do you usually say?
What do I do? I just say I'm a musician.
You say musician. Okay. So then you you do specialize as a musician in drumming, but do you also specialize in lyric writing, composing, and all what a musician entails? Or
Yeah,
what's your
I would say I'm I'm definitely not just a drummer. Um, so I'll tie in that question with your other question of kind of how I started drumming and
the
came
tip?
upon
Yeah,
that.
the
So
tipping point.
yeah, so before I was considering the I'm just going to be a drummer thing, I was singing and dancing, performing since I was 3 years old. So since could even remember, I've been doing this, music. Um, my family was essentially like the Osmonds or, something of that sort. We all sang and danced and performed together. And so drumming came in around 9 years old. And then I was doing drumming, sports, singing and dancing, uh, everything on the planet. Like I was just as busy as a 9-year-old as I am now. Yeah, I was just filling my time with other things as well. But when I was 16, I had a number of sprains on my right ankle skateboarding, and I had already gotten to the point where I wasn't really enjoying the singing and dancing thing as much. It just it wasn't where my heart was at in terms of the music. Like I didn't want to be a Justin Timberlake or somebody like that. Um, but I obviously had tons of roots in music, and so when I had the sprains, the last one that I got was pretty bad, and so I went and got it X-rayed, and they found a benign. It's essentially like a growth tumor in my heel bone. So my heel was essentially eggshell thin and had a tumor like the size of a golf ball in it. So I had to get surgery, um, and I was on crutches for 6 months, non-weight bearing at all, and another 6 months of rehab, and pretty much everything other than it sounds like I wouldn't be able to drum, but that was the only thing I could figure out how to do still. Um, so it was my right foot, and I was still in big band and everything. I was on the baseball team. I was still doing dancing and skateboarding and all that stuff had to end except for drumming because I could sit there and practice on a practice pad all day, no problem. And then I also switched my whole drum set slightly to left-handed, I would say, because I was playing in the big band at school, so I also had to use the hi hat as well a lot. You have to have 2 and 4 on the hi hat. That's what everyone's listening to. So I moved the hi hat right next to the bass drum pedal, and I do everything with my left foot, and then snare drum. I moved over to the right side a little bit to give that hi hat room, and then put the ride and the tom and threw the tom over here on the other side of the snare drum. Just have like a really weird setup, and played for 6 months with my left foot only, switching between the hi hat, and the kick drum. And I was 16 years old, so I was like, it was a challenge. And so when I was able to use my right foot again, and, and actually able to practice and kind of get the mojo back with it, I had now had all this independence that I gained from essentially, having a leg tied behind my back, not being able to use it. And then I was just like, well, this seems to be the thing that I like the most, and it seems to be the thing I'm the best at, and now I have all these new skills, and I've kind of excelled and accelerated way farther past all my peers in terms of the drumming skills. And so I just 16, I was just like, I guess this is it. This is what I'm doing.
Wow, that's cool. Now, did you then start writing lyrics and composing songs, or at what age was that happening?
I've been doing that since I was like 10.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I have floppy drives from an old Yamaha. I can't remember what the keyboard is, but I have these floppy drives full of like little songs that I wrote and produced on the keyboard when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old. And then I think maybe 15-ish, I started picking up the guitar a little bit, writing songs for girlfriends and stuff like that. 16, I had a little rock band that I wrote all the lyrics, and I'd even write a lot of the guitar riffs, and uh, yeah, we recorded some albums, like just like stuff that I was singing and playing drums and wrote all the lyrics and melodies for, and yeah, and then just kept going, kept writing.
So that was good. So a screenwriting teacher told me great art, great music, great film is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great film or great art, great music is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. Jaydon, what role does intention play in your creative process? Say when you're writing a song, composing, creating.
I think my main intention is to leave enough open that a lot of people can figure out and find their own way to relate to it. Um, but at the same time, stay true to what I think, or what I wouldn't say think, because when it's in the process of the writing, I'm not thinking about this is right, or this is the right part. I'm just trying things until I get that moment where I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. So it's like the intention is to leave it open to where the right thing can come across for that song or that moment, or if it's like lyric based, if you're too specific, you're really pigeonholing the amount of people that can relate. And then there's capitalism behind that. It's like you want the most amount of people to relate, because that's going to mean the most amount of people listening to your music. But isn't that the goal? Even if you weren't making a lot of money, it's just to be able to touch a lot of people if you're going to have an intention.
Yeah,
So,
you touched on a lot, Jaydon, there, and I really appreciate it. Basically what you did was summarize the symbolist poet. That was their main thing. You don't create the product, you create the effect so that it's like they got it from Edgar Allan Poe, who
yeah,
he invented the detective novel called Reasoning Backwards. I'm only going to give you a little information and you're going to think you're involved because you're going to say, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to fill in the missing part. So that was pretty amazing how you did that. That's why Patti Smith, Kurt Cobain, Bob Dylan, they all come from the symbolist.
yeah.
It doesn't matter what they're saying. It's exact. Leave enough open to get the. So you really. But the other thing you said, stay true. I'm curious your reaction to Louis Buñuel's quote. I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it. Any
Hmm.
comment on that in regards to stay true? Like how you defining what is true?
Truth is a very deep subject because it's got very many layers, um, and it's all situational for the most part when you're talking about it. Um, I think that truth happens when the observation is pure.
Yeah.
If
Let's
that word makes sense.
yeah, no, let's leave it. Let's leave it there because that's good. But the thing about it too is the cliche is the journey is more important than the destination. So, Buñuel's sort of implying, yeah, I'm for you to search the truth, but if you find it and claim you find it, I don't follow you. Well, that's sort of ironic. Most people think it's a great quote, but one guy finally challenged me because that's bullshit. Because it sort of relates to if the journey is more important than the destination, why do we even have to name a destination or seek one?
Yeah. Well, that's the catch-22. Without the destination, would there be a journey?
Yeah, no, there is, because that's the flaneurs in Paris in the 20s, the guys who changed everything. They just wandered aimlessly and sat at the coffee shop and drank coffee, and then they changed the world.
Did they?
Yeah, Marcel Duchamp, James Joyce, Hemingway, all these guys. That's Anyways, it's an interesting. Yeah, that's great.
Well, maybe their destination wasn't just so far out in the future. I mean, their
Yeah,
destination was the next coffee shop. I think there's
yeah,
still a destination.
yeah,
Did they appreciate the flowers on the way to the coffee shop, or did they just get to the coffee shop and like the coffee?
I said it was certainty, and you went, really? Yeah, sure, I believe you. That was good. But the other thing is, Frank Zappa said, I'm a devout capitalist. And that's funny because he also romanticized this creative process. He says, well, no, let me ask this question first, and then we'll go into that. Duchamp says there's no art without an audience. How much do you think of your audience when you're writing a song or a composition?
How much do I think of the audience? I mean, I think that they're always in the back of the mind throughout the whole process. Um, there's art that you make for yourself, and then there's art that you make for other people. But nobody's gonna know, see, or hear the art for yourself, so it doesn't matter.
Really? Because see, here's what Zappa said. I create this music for myself. If other people like it, great. Now, I think he's romanticizing that because he's raised in a capitalistic society, a consumer society. He knows, he can play Edgar Varese till the cows come home, but he's going to slip in a little Spike Jones because people might like it, give him money, and then he can create more music. So it's sort of like romanticizing this. A lot of time people go, I only create art for myself. I don't think of the audience. But it's like, how can you erase that? Because you sort of smiled and you said, there's capitalism involved too, and
Yeah,
it's part of the whole picture. Go ahead. Yeah.
yeah. Well, once it has an audience at all, then it's then made for the audience. It's not like Zappa was trying to write anything outside of what his audience was liking because it was him. He wasn't trying to write a nice laid back Ray Charles type tune. He was just doing the Zappa thing because his audience liked it. Like once you have an audience, yes, everyone in the beginning could say they're making art for themselves, but then once you have an audience, you're always going to gear what you're doing to that audience. Because there'd be no reason to release it otherwise.
Yeah.
If
But
you're
I
making
think,
it for yourself, if you're just making art for yourself, it should never hear any other ears.
yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. You tackled it well, but it's also this woman who sort of was a pioneer in one-woman performances, like theater. Her name's Ruth Draper. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. The key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in way of imagination and creative power. How do you accomplish that as a performer? How do you, if you believe what Ruth is saying, the key is to bring the audience up into the stage with you, and you give them, they have to give you imagination and creative power. How do you do that, and how do you process this thought?
I think because she is a theater person, it's a little bit of a different vibe than how I look at it. Because I think when people go to concerts and like the places that I play and the music that I'm hearing or giving people, you know, and then they're hearing, I think that I'm not trying to get them on stage with me, look just like smashing drums. I mean, there's nothing going on other than this music and energy that we're projecting out. But that energy that we're projecting out, I'm trying to take them somewhere else, maybe to another moment in time and space where they were happy and connected and content, you could say. Um, I'm not trying to make them experience what I'm experiencing while I'm playing drums. I'm trying to use this magic wand to give them a doorway to a different experience.
It's good. So my friend says there's 3 T's in music, the tenants: taste, theory, and technique. So you've learned the theory, you've learned the technique. How does one acquire taste?
What was that word?
Taste,
Oh, taste.
T-A-S-T-E. Yeah.
Taste. Theory and what was
Theory
the
and tech, theory and technique. It's like Dave Liebman, he nailed it. He said the same thing. Dave Liebman, the saxophonist with Miles, said it's hand, heart, and head. So hand is technique. You can learn how to do the drum. Head is theory. You can know what the changes are, the key and all that. Heart is taste. Could be. Taste. How does one acquire taste?
the only way? Experience. Many,
Yeah.
many, many, many experiences, and preferably ones where you were very untasteful.
Wow. So, but
Because
Stravinsky,
again, the brain has that negativity bias. So I think taste is not knowing what to play as much as knowing what not to play.
dude, you are total George Clinton. 2 things. He said funk is the absence of.
Yeah.
And then he said, I asked him, what kind of music do you like? He goes, I like the kind of music that pisses me off so I can figure out why it pisses me off.
Yeah.
That is heavy. Where did you get the words negativity bias? Is it a traditional psychological term or did you make it up? You know the origin of that?
I've just heard it from a bunch of philosophers and neuroscientists, and
Yeah.
just different things that I've listened to. It's come about because they're just how the brain works. You know, it's formed off of remembering threats to its existence. You know, so you're gonna remember like most. I don't know what the exact statistic is, but most of your memories are gonna be negative. And if you want to log more positive memories, you actually have to purposefully do it. Like your
Work
brain
on
will automatically remember the negative stuff, but if you want to remember the positive stuff, you kind of have to like sit in the memory for a while and keep replaying it for your mind to log it in. So that's why, like as a child, you have most unfortunate memories and negative memories, and then there are those few that are like, oh, I got this red bike for Christmas, and it was the best day on the planet because as a kid you got the red bike, and the whole day you're just thinking about this red bike, and your brain's just replaying this experience over and over again. That was so great, and then you remember it, but it only
but
takes
it's
a split second to
yeah.
remember a negative experience.
but it seems you're a positive person and you're happy. But I'm curious one thing. Is negativity bias more innate in humans or more invented by humans?
I'd say that's probably more innate
Yeah.
because it's in all animals. It's not just humans. Um, Animals in the wild remember dangerous zones. They remember things that threaten their survival
Yeah.
more. And they don't even have. I don't even know if they would remember. I don't know because I don't, read minds of animals. But I
Yeah.
can't imagine that they're ever reminiscing on great experiences they had with their, bear friend or whatever. I think that their brain literally just logs threats and steers them away from threats.
So Aaron Copland says the four elements of music are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. So we know what melody, harmony, and rhythm are basically. How do you explain what tone color is in layperson's terms?
Tone color?
Yeah.
I would say tone color would maybe express an emotion,
Yeah.
um, or a sensation in the body. Like say you have like a really warm bass subsynth versus like a really aggressive sine wave. Immediately, those two changes in the sound of the bass will create a different emotion immediately.
Yeah.
Something about a sine wave create more aggression, and something about a really nice subby bass will create more relaxation. It's like that's what I would say. It's all
Good.
based in emotion.
McLuhan said that song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical tastes is ultimately connected to language difference. Any comment?
Yeah,
You agree?
I would agree. I would
Is
say
what's
language has a big influence. Um, like some languages generally maybe have more swing. I was actually talking to a buddy. Uh, I think the music style is maybe called bongda or something. It's from the Middle East, maybe India even. I don't know exactly, but he was saying because all the rhythms are like very, and we were listening to it, and we're like the language seems to be that rhythm. Like the language comes off as a shuffle, and if you said it more straight, it probably wouldn't sound as natural.
good? That was good. What's more fundamental, language or music?
Fundamental, more fundamental. I think that probably music was before language.
Yeah.
So I would say because you can transcend language with music. You don't necessarily like I don't have to know what the words are to feel something when a song's on. I don't even have to have words.
That's T.S. Eliot said poetry can communicate before it's understood. The tuba throat singers can put me in a transcendental state. You know the tuba throat singers?
Yeah.
And they sing about three things. Their boots, snow, and horses.
It sounds about like country.
Yeah, right. That's it. Very good. So tell me, Jaydon, tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
An instrumental.
Yeah, an instrumental song that makes you
Yeah.
laugh.
Hmm. I don't know.
Okay, that's all right. Let's move on. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
What's more important? Say that again.
Conviction or compromise?
What do we mean by conviction?
Ah, that is great. No, it took 25 years asking that question. The guy goes, depends on what you mean by important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, you know what conviction means. Conviction or compromise, just off the top of your head. What's more important?
I think it's all situational.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes
fine.
conviction is more important because something needs to happen
Yeah,
for sure. And I think compromise is the fallback when you can't make anything happen.
yeah. That's good. You distinguished it well. Back to poetry. T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
English.
What form is your inner consciousness in?
What form?
Yeah. So the question really is I'm not looking for English. I'm like, what's the form of your inner voice?
I would say it's generally critical.
Critical. Wow. You got that from the way your parents raised you or on your own?
I think probably a lot of religious background mixed with just a competitive nature since I was a kid, so it's critical and sometimes constructive. But yeah, I would say critical is a general.
Right, but are you saying critical in a negative sense, or you said constructive? You mean it's critical in a positive sense, constructively, or it's both? Critical as negative services and this both. Okay.
Constructive when it needs to be and critical all the other times.
Yeah. Again, there's a bias there. So a couple of my film heroes have these mantras: ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. When Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is music making, art making, more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technology or culture is dominant?
Is there no self or is there only a self?
Wow. Well, who says that?
Me.
Is there no self or only self? So again, you're great. You're answering the question with the question, but I'll give you two drummer examples of this question. So I'm fishy. Okay, let's do this first. Can art making, music making be egoless?
Can't be egoless. Well, let's take it and define the ego first. I would consider the ego not just the thing that tells you you're better than this or better than that. That's part of it. I would consider the ego a conglomeration of all your past conditioning and your past experiences, your whole identity. I'd call your ego, and I don't think art would exist without it because you're expressing it through your past conditioning.
Yeah.
I think it's very involved in the self. I think everything that we do is involved in the self. Even if you're sitting there meditating, trying to get rid of the self, you're just enforcing the self.
That's good. But it's interesting because when I started asking this question a few years ago, can art making be egoless? People go, no. And one guy finally said, great art is egoless. And it was interesting because it's like, it reminded me of James Brown. This guy I know, his drummer played with James. He quit. He says, I can play with James Brown. And he quit and he went and played with James Brown. He says, how was it? He goes, well, it was great, but he never paid me. But I learned a secret. He goes to every town and he jams with the local musician and steals his lick. Now, those are two negative things. Like me and you, we put James Brown on a pedestal, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put him down, but I loved hearing that. And then the idea was that it was so universal because he got licks from everybody. That's why James Brown's music it is sort of egoless. So it depends on how you define ego. But the question about how the dominant technology or culture affects us, and then we're a vehicle. I might have told you this. My friend said Missy Elliott learned how to sing from car alarms. and then the two drummer examples were they asked Ginger Baker, where'd you get your drum sound? He said, I got it from being bombed in London in World War II. And the bombs would go off, boom, 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 boom. So, that's where he just channeled that sound into his body. And then Clyde, James Brown's drummer, said he lived in Ohio next to a factory and a train track. So he invented funk drumming, like, he heard the hissing of the factory and then the beat, the tongue along of the train. So, how much is that?
So that's all part of their past conditioning, though. That's all their
Yeah.
self-identity. That's their ego. That's their story. That's them living through their ego and projecting their experience of the past out.
Yeah.
So I would say it's still all ego. I don't think there's a way to get out of the ego, honestly. I think that again, that whole dualism thing, it makes you want to think that there is that other side when you're on this side. And so you try to get there and then you say you're there, but you're not because you're still living within the ego and your past experiences. Like you couldn't create art if you didn't have experience.
Well, you nailed it because this guy, Leo Bersani, just died the other day and he studied the symbolist poet. And he says the very crises which threatens the writing of poetry sustains poetic composition. So you could say that the very crises that threatens the writing or making of music sustains the musical composition. So
Yeah.
So we got about 8 more minutes. Oh, hold on. We got about 8 more minutes. Can you go a little longer, or you got to go?
I actually got to bounce right at 5:30.
In 8 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
So Moshe Feldenkrais worked with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Tell me a weakness that I turned into a strength. I don't have any weaknesses.
Very good. Hey, good ego, dude. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
I'd say good luck, dude.
Good luck, dude. That is good. Jaydon, how do you find peace of mind?
When I stop looking for it.
Oh, that is a great answer. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
Can be a productive emotion when dealing with maybe your own failures.
Nice. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
It depends on if I was drunk or stoned or something when I put it on there.
Okay, I think we talked about
the paper's not on the roll; it's just sitting on the table.
There you go. I think we talked about Alan Watts for a second back then. Here's 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in 1 or 2 words. Who started it all?
Me.
Are we going to make it?
Probably not.
Where do we put it?
Anywhere.
Who's cleaning it up?
Nobody.
Is it serious?
Probably.
Dude, you are great. Okay, couple more and we're out of here. I got 4 minutes. You got to end at 5:30, right?
Yeah. I got to get to a session, actually. I got to.
Okay. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good that I've never had and never want. I don't know. Nothing.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Probably throw up.
Great Thornton Wilder said, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this, Jaydon. You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. What's it really all about for you?
Respect.
Oh, that is a great word. What is the healthiest cultural shift you see developing today? Or what's a cultural shift that you see developing today that inspires you?
I guess I would say acceptance. People are starting to be more accepting of just everything and everyone. It's not anywhere it needs to be, but it's starting to shift. I'd say that. Yeah, accepting of other people and just understanding most of your beliefs are bullshit.
Beautiful. Jaydon, you've played drums for how many years pretty much?
How many years?
Yeah.
Right now, it's been 24.
How does playing drums shape your behavior? How has it? How does it?
I mean, it shapes the whole schedule of my day, so my behavior is completely based around it. I think that once you commit to something like an instrument or something in the arts, you undoubtedly make that your life if you really want to do it, you know? So I think that it's either shaped my behavior on the daily to gear towards it or to gear away from it, to get a break from it.
That's called negativity bias, right?
Yeah, or that might just be trying to find balance.
Balance. But tell me one major element that's changed in 24 years and one major element that stayed the same in regards to drumming. Or just music in general, either way.
What element has changed? I think that now, over the years, obviously the thing that's changed is all the information that I've learned. I now can't remember, and it's just information that regurgitates and comes out whenever it's going to come out. You know, I don't remember all the stuff that I've learned, but there's a lot of stuff in there, and it can come out when it's going to come out when it needs to. I guess something that stayed the same is I'm still playing just as many 6-stroke rolls as I did when I was like 12.
That's beautiful. Was the other thing muscle memory? Is that sort of what you were referring to? Muscle.
In terms of
I can't remember it, but it says you're still there. Is that like your muscle remembers it, but maybe
I
your
would
brain?
say it's like all the rudiments and licks I know. When I play, I don't think about playing anything.
Right.
So I have the ability now to just play. Where
It's like,
you know, obviously coming through up until my 20s or whatever, you're still you're thinking while you're playing rather than just playing.
yeah, you're breathing.
It takes a while to get to the place where you just play. Okay.
last question. Thanks a lot, Jaydon. This has been fun. I learned a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
What gives you the most optimism?
What gives me the most optimism? Money.
Ah, that is good. You're like, for example, I'm a devout capitalist,
Yeah.
but it seems you love music too. I mean, you're pretty happy playing music, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough as hell, but I enjoy it.
Well, dude, I want to hire you someday and let's do a session. So thanks a lot. This has really
Yeah.
been fun.
Thanks for having me on, brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks a lot, Jaydon.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me. This is fun.
Fun. Great. Bye.
See ya.